So what's up, guys? This is Nick from Taylor Timepieces. I'm here with my buddy Jeff. Jeff from BuonCo. He is a very well-skilled media artist and also a watch enthusiast. So we're just here to talk to Jeff about watches and why he loves watches so much and what interests him about the industry, where he sees it going. All right, what's up, Jeff? How are you?
Hey, it's good to see you. Yeah, I think I want to start with where the industry is going, because I was actually on Reddit the other day and I was defending sort of the watch industry because somebody was talking about the new James Bond watch.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I don't need a thing that goes tick tick on my wrist. I don't see a market for that. And I was like,
all
what?
watches
You're
go tick-tick.
yeah, you're literally on a watch thread on Reddit talking about how there's no market for watches anymore. And I'm like, okay, all right, hold on. And then I started like kind of commenting, and I was giving this more thought. I was like, they're so wrong in every way. And I thought about how brands, some of the biggest brands in the whole entire world, in par with, say, Apple, are watch companies or jewelry companies. These companies may not have the same numbers as Apple, but they're as well known. The market for watches is so much more significant than I think the world realizes. They're on par with vehicles and computers. And to say there's no market for it was just baffling to me. So from an actual numbers standpoint, an objective, not opinion-based one, watch brands are some of the highest performing brand recognition in the entire world. And that says a lot because it goes beyond the actual thing of it being a watch. And that's one of my defense in this whole, I was like, I gotta keep this logical and measurable.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where I started going. And so for the future of watches, I think that this analog grounding of watches can, it's something that people are going to start missing. It's kind of like why digital minimalism is a thing now, and why people start to gravitate towards more like phonographs.
Now explain what digital minimalism is, because I'm not too familiar with that.
Okay, so digital minimalism, there's a book on it by Cal Newport, who is a great author, great book, and it basically sums up, it's like minimalism with your digital life, and it's clearing like old photos and like clearing up your lifestyle so that you're not always nosing your phone and always in a computer in this digital life. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of like a summary of what my favorite parts were.
Okay.
Basically, we're so integrated in this matrix of digital lives and like being an influencer and being this identity and all this stuff like that, stripping that away and getting back to the real world and real communication and not always having this like little twitch.
I agree.
So something like that.
Yeah.
And watches are is an analog element that resets you. When you look at it, you're like, this is now, this is here. And forget the actual telling of the time. Like this reminds you of being in the present.
So It's about how it teaches you to be in the present moment and really appreciate how your life is going and what's going on in the world.
Yeah. And it's like an indicator of that. It's a symbol, as we've talked about before, as watches. It isn't just that for everyone. That is it for me. But I think that the fact that you can't get away from it being this grounded analog element, even if it's quartz, actually, even if it's the little digital, it's a real life element that's tangible and isn't like degrading like an Apple Watch. Like that gets worse over time immediately, like a car off the lot. It starts to get worse immediately. It's not going to live forever, where a watch will surpass your own lifetime and everyone else's.
And it retains its value as well.
Right, and that's what I mean by real world item, not just digital.
Yeah. So, I know you started BuonCo.
Yeah.
So if you could tell me a little bit about that and how your career as a creative intellectual has really affected your opinion on the watches.
Yeah, so since I make digital media, the stuff that people consume digitally, this is almost the opposing element. I went so deep and I lived so deeply in advertisement and people being told what's good and what's a status symbol and all this stuff. All that's very valid, and brand recognition and branding and digital creation, whether it's art, digital art, or motion graphics, or just video, movies, film, commercial, all of that media is consumed through a glowing box of some sort. And the more I got involved in that, the more I started to kind of like get like antsy and going kind of a little crazy, because I had nothing in my life that was tangible. Yeah. And I started to crave things that were in my true life. And it wasn't just relationships, that's one thing, but to actually have something of material value. And as a minimalist, I am not about materials in general. So I'm looking for something that's tangible, that's an opposing element of this media that I create all day, but still has the things of that I love the most. The art of it, the design, the perfection, the attention to detail, all of these things that create good media, the expression and everything like that. And that's when my love for watches started, when I was really young, but we'll get back to that. But that kind of all of a sudden kind of kicked in. It was like kind of like, oh, right, this. And I found watches again, and I was like, this is it. This is what I was looking for. This is what makes me feel human again. And it went in the morning, you know? So,
yeah. So I find that a lot of what we do and a lot of our interests are passed down through our relatives. A little bit about me. My grandfather was very involved in watches. Yeah. Would you say that your relatives and your family members and friends were just as involved in watches as you were? And if so, how did that kind of shape you as a person?
Actually, the opposite, I think. I don't really know about... The answer would be no. I don't think my family is really into watches at all. I mean, my brother has an Apple Watch, both of them. And then, I mean, my mom likes jewelry and stuff, but she's not very materialistic in any way. So it's kind of like, not really. It was some weird fascination when I was a kid. I think my own weird path brought me to be quite different than my family in a lot of ways, so it's not. But when I was a kid, I'll just go into that. But when I was a kid, I used to take like JCPenney catalogs and cut out the watches. And I'd just save up, and I was like, my dad would call me a miser because I was so good at my money that all I wanted to do was buy watches. So I would cut out pictures of watches and I'd put them like collages and have a collection of watches I wanted. And I would save up and I'd buy that watch. And sometimes they were ridiculous, sometimes they were at Toys R Us, sometimes they were at like Macy's.
You got like
I had the bug, basically. I was born with it. And that's kind of this weird thing that happens with watches. You kind of are a lot of times born with it. You can learn it, and you can get into it. But I feel like when you're born with it, you get a really good insight because you've been looking at them your whole entire life.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you start kind of daring to put more money, more of your own income into it. You'll stretch more for it. You're more comfortable with it because there's a passion that's really deeply rooted in you. So.
Yeah, I agree that definitely your passions definitely lead you to success. Now, something that you touched on is how watches made you feel. They often have this thing in the fashion industry that the clothes make the man, or don't let the suit wear you, wear the suit yourself.
Yeah.
So to that point, would you think that a gentleman or a woman is defined by what they wear as far as watches go? What can you tell by a man by looking at his watch?
Well, a lot of people might disagree with me, a lot of people who are trying to stay positive, but to be totally frank about it, I think that there's a part of me that's very judgmental, and I don't like that, but also I'm kind of more like, no, this is actually just the truth of people, and this is something I've learned, and that's why I'm good at my job, because I understand branding, and people are judgmental. So, with that being said, you can tell a lot about a person by everything, by their clothes, by what their watches, by how they carry themselves, by what they care about, everything. The person can wear things that aren't necessarily representative of them as a character, but generally speaking, people wear what they are. And a watch is a very significant thing, especially for a man, which is different than a woman's world. Men tend to wear things that they feel comfortable in because a lot of men don't like to stretch their comfort zone, more so with style than women. So when you ask something like, what can like an appearance say about somebody, I would say it says almost everything, unless there's a variable. Like, I like to wear a $10 Casio, but I also like to wear my few $1,000 Speedmaster, right? Yeah. And it's me as a person, but when I'm wearing a Casio, that doesn't mean I'm less of a person because it's a cheaper watch. It's because I'm a watch enthusiast. And if you know the $10 Casio, the F91W or whatever it is, you'd be like, oh, nice. You get that head nod from somebody who also appreciates watches. And that says a lot. It's not the dollar value. It's not anything like that. It's just kind of like, it's like a well-made suit or a car. Oh, I'm really passionate about engineering and I love this Lamborghini, and you might roll that up. You know, like, I don't know, it's pretty...
Yeah, so what you're saying is your judgment comes from someone wearing a watch or timepiece that they don't necessarily know, that they just wear just because it's the status quo, something like a Black Submariner. If you don't really know much about watches, a lot of people, kind of gravitate towards that Black Submariner.
Yep.
You're saying, hey, wear that Casio, wear that tag, wear whatever you want, just know what it is and know why you're wearing it, have a purpose for it.
Right. Yeah, and you don't have to, with that being said, is you don't even have to be into watches to wear them, because you can like anything and wear whatever you want, but that's part of your expression. If you want that ubiquitous Black Submariner, awesome. I support that. That's freaking awesome because it's a great freaking watch. But if also you like the Submariner because you're like, you know what, I actually want an everyday watch that's super rugged, waterproof. I want it to be, go with everything. I want it to be classy. I want it to represent me. I want it to be a status symbol. I want it to thing. That also is very good. And it doesn't matter what it is as long as it's something important to you. And if that continues with what you're saying, I kind of went on a tangent, but whatever.
No worries at all. So let me ask you this, to close this out, you get one watch for the rest of your life. You have one watch to represent you, who you are as a person, what you want to represent, and the mark that you want to leave in the world. What watch is that?
Well, the one I'm buying from you, which is the Rolex Ceramic Daytona 116-500 LN. And the Knorr, specifically, you gave me the option to get the white dial, which is far more popular. And it's funny because to knock out the white, I didn't think it represented me. For one reason is I had a white dial for so many years, I'm kind of over a white dial. It was not something I identified with after a while. But then the black, the Daytona, it's kind of, I wouldn't say a perfect watch, but it's a perfect watch that represents a lot of the things that I love. And the fact that I still want to have other watches, there's a lot of the design of a Rolex is, well, Rolex stands for excellence, okay? And that's something that I still strive for. I still have a part of me that likes the societal appreciation and an ego, and Rolex fills an ego, whereas, say, JLC,
or this Cartier I'm wearing right now.
Which is, all right, so like the Grand Seiko, as we spoke, I love Grand Seiko. And the thing that people say about Grand Seiko is, versus Rolex, is you buy a Rolex to impress everybody else, you buy a Grand Seiko to impress yourself. That's a great phrase because I love Grand Seiko, and they should get that kind of charm to their brand. That doesn't undermine Rolex. It doesn't actually mean a Rolex is to impress others. But I like the idea of that ego part because I have a part of my ego that still is developing.
Okay.
And Rolex to me, as much as I want other ones as much as Rolex, the one watch I would say is that one. For that brand reason, forget brand, and I'll talk about the watch itself. It's shiny, it's rugged, it's a tool watch that's so polished, it's almost beyond a tool. And it's so strange that it's evolved and it's become such a staple in culture with its history. And I like heritage a lot, but I don't think that matters as much to me as much as when I look at the watch itself, and I look at the little indicators, and I look at the dials, and I look at the polish, and I'm literally a fan of the watch itself. Whatever brand is on it, I'm like, wow, this suits my style because of that polished, rugged feel.
Okay.
And that would be kind of the way to sum it up.
Now, I know that I said that was my last topic, but I had an idea that came up. I know the Daytona is quite a pricey watch.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people who want to watch, but they don't want to, spend the funds to wear a watch? You say, it's fine, I don't need to spend that kind of money to wear a watch. We have phones, we have things like that. What convinced you or motivated you to drop this kind of money on a watch as beautiful as that watch?
It's a process. First thing is, I would never ever try to tell anybody or talk to them about why it's okay. I would say it's okay where you are. It's okay not wanting to drop that, because I think it's important when you're dropping that, it makes you value it. When you get to that point, it's like a maturity thing. Like, you don't tell a kid to stop being a kid. Like, yeah, every once in a while maybe grow up here and there on this certain topic when you're talking to a kid. But I think it's a mindset when it comes to wristwatches. It's like, okay, you do you for now. Eventually you'll get it, because I've noticed that in our culture and a lot of global culture, the more evolved a person's well-being becomes, the more they get attracted to luxury goods.
Yeah.
And a watch is in the category of luxury goods. So my brothers are really into Apple Watches, right?
Okay.
They don't care. They don't want it. Like, yeah, one of my brothers is pretty interested in watches, but probably wouldn't want to spend the money on it. My other brother's not interested. I'd be like, okay, cool, you do you.
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, I see them, hey, you ever see this watch? Yeah, it's freaking great.
Yeah.
Or they show me a watch because they know I'm into it. And then they start to see a little bit when there's this growth that happens. And I say, you can encourage somebody who's interested, but I would never say, hey, you should get into watches.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm kind of a person who really wants to encourage everyone where they're at, because a watch stands for something in your life. And when you get to that point where you go, I'm going to drop this money on that, good, because you got there. You developed. Nobody pushed you into this sale.
Yeah.
You're saying, this is what this stands for. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's what we strive to do with Taylor Timepieces, is to not push people to buy things. I think, the saying that I always have, the best sale is the sale that you don't have to make.
Yep.
I mean, that's why I love watches. It's just, I feel like it tells a story about who you are as a person. And I would definitely disagree with those people who say that as we enter a more technological age, that watches aren't becoming as valuable. I actually would counter that and say they're actually becoming more valuable because they're less common in today's society.
Absolutely. I think it was so important for me to find you to make my purchase in general, just for extra shout out and everything like that. But what you've done is you've seen eye to eye with me on all of these things, and you haven't, like you said, pushed anything. And that's what I think separated you, is you embraced the way that I've approached all my questions and answers and everything like that. I'm gonna wait for that. But one of the coolest things about what you've done is you stay professional on the business front, but you've also considered me as a person. And you weren't selling to me as a customer, you were selling to me as a person. You got to know me, and you made even other suggestions that you thought suited me. And it wasn't until we got to this point where we both became like, nope, this is it. Because I had a couple options we were talking about with the Datejust and all this stuff, and then we landed on the Daytona, and I'm really excited. I can't wait to get it.
Great, I look forward to it as well. I know this is the start of a great both business relationship and a great friendship. For many of you guys who don't know, Jeff is actually responsible for a lot of the watch photography that goes into our Instagram page at tailored_timepieces. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go follow him at BuonCo. And yeah, he's got some beautiful work. So I'd like to thank all you guys for taking the time to hear our story and hear Jeff's story. And thanks. Have a great day. Thank you, Jeff.
Cheers.